because I think if you guys are someone that is around my age or older, you
Unless
guys
it was
know,
anonymous.
remember when you're like starting off to write an essay and like that first, right? What do they call it? Like writer's fatigue or writer's fog, where you're like, I don't know what to talk about. But then once you start writing, you get into like your zone. Like you're like, I know exactly what I'm writing now. Like I feel like that really gets your creative juices flowing, and it's like mandatory in order to be a good and effective writer.
See, I wouldn't have that. Because my teachers taught me, they was like, all right, just they said get the thesis first, but then write the introductory paragraph, and then pretty much they was like, it's gonna be a rough draft. Don't make that shit perfect. Just write it just write anything, and that's how you'll be able to go ahead and get all the the three bodies, the three body paragraphs, the argument, the intro, the three bodies, and then you got the counter argument, then you got the last one, the what the fuck is it called? To bring it together, the ending of it. But it was like write everything. Don't try to be perfect because you're gonna go back and it's not gonna be perfect your first time. So you're gonna have to go ahead and rewrite it. Not rewrite it, but you're gonna have to do a whole lot of edits. So you might as well not waste time trying to be perfect.
The fact that students today don't even have to do that is insane. But I can still see why people say it's okay if it's being used as a tool and not just for you to write your whole essay, but that's still a little shocking. And as AI advances even more,
man, people using to write their own essays, man.
To see how this is going to really affect schooling, especially as these Gen Alpha kids get to college. And this ties perfectly into my point that Gen Alpha does not critically think, and I'll even say the younger Gen Z. They're losing these abilities because they have sources like this that do all of that critical thinking for them.
I just don't think these kids even care. They don't care about making a difference in the world. They don't care about how to have a resume. They don't care how to write a resume. They don't care how to write a cover letter because ChatGPT will just do it for them. And I think that we need to cut off technology from these kids probably until they go to college.
I've been in the digital world for about 5 years.
Now, I wouldn't say until they go to college, but until they understand how to use their the resources for good. So it really is on the parents, because it's like, say they're given technology, right? Like my school used to pass out. We're assigned laptops, and we'd have them, and we wouldn't be able to take them home. We have to turn it back in. But sometimes we'd have to take it. Actually, no, I don't even think we end up taking them home, because essentially the only time you were able to take them home is if you didn't have a computer at home. But then they'd be like, all right, well, if you don't have a computer at home, then you can just stay after school and use it, or go to the library or something like that. Like there was no other reason for you to take it home. Now, I don't think we'll be able to take the computers home until like maybe junior, senior year. But I think they should start doing that again. But also, getting back to the parents, say they had assigned laptops. They couldn't take them home. They go back to the crib. They'd have their own. They'd have a phone. They'd have their iPad. They'd have some type of tablet or something like that. And then their parents aren't micromanaging them on what they're doing, because the parents are worried about bills and taking care of the house and taking care of the family, providing and protection and stuff like that. They think that the school shit is minuscule to what they're doing.
Years now, or since I've graduated, and throughout the 3 years, I've taught digital arts classes and I've taught an English class, and I would say that in all of my teaching experience, technology has posed quite a challenge. And with AI becoming so accessible to children nowadays, especially teaching in an English or Core 4 classroom, it's been especially challenging kind of to have the kids comprehend and critical think and think for themselves on certain things.
Yeah.
So on my way out, I wanted to kind of raise awareness and just let people know how AI and technology is affecting their children these days.
Right. I know, coming from a mother who taught for 33 years, my sister's a teacher in South Carolina, the challenges that y'all deal with, this is even before AI was a thing. I'm sure it's even more challenging now, and clearly your opinion is yes, it is.
Shout out to my teacher that actually give a fuck about the students, man.
You're a high school teacher. I'm sure your students loved you. We hate to see someone leave education because of problems within the classroom. Give me some examples of what the students are saying to you.
Well, a lot of students, and I do want to be clear, I taught a lot of very motivated and bright children. And so I don't want this to come off as if this is all the kids' fault. But I do know that a lot of times in my English classroom, I would ask them to write down a short response or just 5 sentences to answer a question. And a lot of times it would be about 2.5 sentences, and they would say, well, I can't think of anything else to say, or, well, why do I have to answer in complete sentences? Like, you get the point from what I'm saying in just this little sentence. And then a lot of times I would assign essays, long form essays, and I know how children write, especially when they handwrite me things in the beginning of the school year. And so when a student, how I know how they write, typically would give me a very eloquently and thorough essay on a topic that I know that normally wouldn't come from them, I would ask them, was this really you? And I'd run it through an AI generator. And
Like, imagine you were a student and you'd say certain things like, you would write a whole lot of run-on sentences, and also she pays attention to how you are as a student throughout the year. And I'm trying to think of an example. Like, you're very, as a student, especially in English class, you don't know really what to write, and so you like kind of fumble around and you kind of beat around the bush to make more meat for the essay and use a whole lot of pause or in between words like and, if, the ones they don't want you to use as much. I forgot what it's called. And then all of a sudden this teacher gets a essay that's so clear, so concise, that is damn near like you turn into Jesus overnight. Nigga, no. You know how they used to be able? They didn't get away with it. But you know how the child used to do it? They'd have like their older brother who already took the class, or have their parent write it. And even then, they still got caught. They'd be like, did you write this? Yeah, I did. No, you didn't, because I know how you write, because I have your other paperwork on, the stuff that you've written down, and then it's totally different. And then even if the parent told them to write it down to try to outsmart the teacher, there's still gonna be some type of like way the teacher's gonna know that the kid didn't write it.
of course, it would say 100% ChatGPT or AI, and I would speak to the student, and they would more so question of, well, if I have to redo this, how much is it really going to affect my grade? Can I just take the zero?
Oh my gosh, trying to take the easy way out. Yeah.
Right.
Is it promoting just a laziness among our children?
Yeah, it is.
I suppose, and a lot of them are just feeling as though they don't really need to do the work anymore because AI will just do it for them.
Right.
And I think that AI can...
Grammarly provides a bunch of different suggestions to improve the correctness and style of your writing. Clarity suggestions like
be in a classroom and in a very...
Niggas start talking about writing now. They want to do a writing ad. Grammarly. Fuck Grammarly. But I was gonna say, not only they want to use AI because they don't really care about it, they'll just take the deal, but they also understand, like, bruh, but the amount of content they're consuming, because they're not just using AI, they're using a whole bunch of content on TikTok. They're consuming a whole lot of information on TikTok and YouTube and Twitter and Instagram, just about people who are multimillionaires. They see all this shit and they're like, damn, I don't even need school. Because a lot of people are saying, like, the education system sucks. You really don't need school. And they're essentially like, hey, I really don't need school. I can just become a millionaire. I can become an influencer. I can do this. I can do this. Da 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 da. Like, there's a difference if they're like, all right, I don't really give a fuck about this class. English because I'm gonna be an engineer or something like that. But you're gonna have to give a fuck because you have to write reports and stuff like that. So you gotta take a little bit. You gotta put a little bit more attention to that. But it's gonna be a whole lot more attention gonna be on mathematics and stuff like that. It's different if it's like that, but they're not caring about any classes from what it seems like. I mean, she's only an English teacher, but that's what it seems like. Most of the classes they like, I just use AI for.
Effective way if we teach children in the older grades how to use it properly. But if we're allowing them this unlimited access in the classroom to use AI, they're not going to do the work themselves.
We grew up writing our own papers,
Facts.
going to libraries,
Facts.
researching, learning how to research.
Yep.
We learned how to struggle through a problem.
Yep.
That to me built resilience and an original thought process.
Facts.
Now kids today, they're not going to know how to research, write in their own voice, or even finish a full thought without AI.
What's the point of me even being here if kids are just going to use AI to cheat and generate their answers?
So right now I'm teaching a unit, House on Mango Street, one of my favorite books to teach because it's really relevant. I teach in Chicago. If you know the story, coming of age in Chicago, all that good stuff. But it pairs with a narrative writing unit for the students where we explore the most important life lessons that they've learned, and they have to pick a specific location in Chicago that is important and means something to them. And then they have to write their narrative, coming to ultimately a life lesson learned. And we are doing the whole writing process on pen and paper, baby. Because already, before we started reading, I had them doing free write questions on different sort of like pre-reading themes, like thematic questions. Silly me, allowing them to do that on the computer. I'm talking students were ChatGPTing the response to the question, do you believe that where you are born has an impact on who you turn out to be in adulthood? Do you believe it? You human being with thoughts and opinions, do you believe it? And they are going on ChatGPT.
Why ask me when I can ask AI? Damn. AI knows about how I live better than me, so why ask me? It's not like I'm in this body every day.
Response to this question, and then copying and pasting it. Luckily, I noticed what they were doing in one class period and then got to change it for the rest of my classes for it to be handwritten. But I am a fan of going back to the old school because I want my students to have their own thoughts, to have their own opinions. This is bigger than just the students can't read, the students can't write. This is the students do not have their own opinions. They do not have their own thoughts. They do not possess the critical and deep thinking ability to sit with a question for 5 minutes and really decide what they feel about it and then communicate it. Thinking about their own life, their own experiences, it's almost as if they haven't even made meaning of some things. They're so passive in their own existence. And that sounds terrible, but it's what I'm seeing. So in English, when I'm pushing them to get to those higher level, to make meaning of things, it's stupid. Why would I do that? Is this gonna make me money? So I'm seeing it. I am dealing with the pushback on having everything handwritten.
You're gonna need to learn how to speak proper English and write proper English to make money.
What is happening with the handwriting? But yeah, I do think technology is erasing our children's ability to think for themselves, to think critically, to think for more than 5 seconds on something, and determine how they feel about it. So I'm making them handwrite every step of this narrative because you're not about to have a robot tell your story about your life.
And as someone that's 24 years old, I see this even with me. I noticed for me at one point, I couldn't formulate an opinion without looking at the comment section first. Like I would see a post, like say it's like, oh, this celebrity said this about dating. And I'm like, do I really agree with that? Let's read the comments first. And then I'd read through the comments and I'd be like, yeah, I see from their perspective. And then typically the majority I would start siding with. So I always think like, do I even have an original opinion or experience? I'm sure y'all even watching my video right now, y'all might hate AI or love AI, but hearing me speak and then me using clips from other TikTok users or other users on the internet, you might change your opinion as well. That's just one component of things. So
I can definitely say that have I been a bot and said, and read through comments to see what, what they thought about it before I've actually went and watched a video or something like that. I'm sure at the time when I was younger, but I came to say recently, the past 4 or 5, I say 4 or 5 years, I wouldn't really go with the majority. So I wouldn't really read comment sections, and I would just look at the video and formulate my own opinion. So I don't think I've done that. I could be wrong, but I don't think I've ever done that before. I can't say ever done that, but it's rare that I would do that.
So now, even with the concept of students don't even know how to write in their own voice, they don't trust themselves to be able to articulate a full idea because they now have this robot at their fingertips that will tell them what is right and what is wrong, when in all actuality, that is not exactly the case. We can't even trust ourselves to write emails anymore. Like, I know for me, I'll start writing an email and I'm like, let me put this in AI so they can like zhuzh it up a little bit, make it a little more fancy or make it sound more professional. But I've learned how to write emails. I was taught that. I know how to articulate a sentence. I know how to write an essay. I did it all of my schooling. But why is it now I can't even trust myself to formulate a thought without having AI or ChatGPT to back me up? It's terrifying, and this is coming from someone who is almost 25 years old. Imagine how this is affecting 9-year-olds. AI for adults can be used as a tool, but for them it is the default. They're skipping the learning part entirely and going straight to the robot because it's easier.
Shout out to the niggas who never use AI.
Easier. We literally had to learn to think before we were given the tools to help us. They're being handed the tools before they even know what thinking is. And the problem to me is schools and education systems are encouraging this. Some people are comparing AI to a calculator. Those are two different things. And I do believe the calculator is a very useful tool. But
Man, I remember when I was in middle school, they would say we weren't allowed to use calculators. We're teaching how to do it by hand. Don't worry about a calculator. It wasn't until like I went to a Christian academy for my middle school up until like first quarter of 8th grade, and then my last 3 quarters of 8th grade I went to a public school, and that's when they was like, all right, you can use calculators. But it wasn't no like fancy like a TI-84. It was just a regular calculator. It wasn't until I got into like honors algebra and shit like that they was like, all right, for this class you're gonna need a TI-84 calculator. Like that's when, like, because we had to do like, you know, the square roots and shit like that. I mean, you can do it on a regular calculator. What's something you can't really do on a calculator? You can't do on a regular calculator that you do on a TI-84. Oh, like graphs. Like we learned how to do graphs, like bar graphs, the other graph. We just, you know, those type of graphs, shit like that. Like I said, it was an honors, not regular.
Calculator you still need to learn how to use on your own and how to use it effectively. However, yet with AI, you can literally type in a math equation and it'll answer it for you and do the work for you too. If y'all don't think that's scary yet, y'all need to start thinking a little bit harder. Remember in computer class when we had to learn how to properly research and cite our sources, and we had to make sure we're using reliable sources at that. I remember the whole concept of like, you can't use Wikipedia at all. Now, I do use Wikipedia a little bit sometimes. I'll like use it for like my video essays. But in schooling, we were taught you can't use Wikipedia, or you need to use sources that had .gov at the end or .net.
See, now you can't even trust the .gov and .net. Well, I don't know about .net, but you can't really trust the .govs because those be biased. So you gotta watch out for that. But my teachers would say, and my professors would say, obviously no Wikipedia. They would say, obviously no, you can't use Wikipedia, but they would say you could use the sources that Wikipedia like has, because they do have different sources and scholarly articles that are referenced. They'd be like, you can check out the references because they have some good references, but you can't use Wikipedia.
Or .edu. We learned those tangible skills. Like there were
.edu is a good one
literally
too.
whole classes dedicated to that. I know for me, even at my school, they were like, y'all can't just use the internet. You guys also have to know how to do it the old school way. So we'd go down to the library during library class and we'd learn how to use encyclopedias, dictionaries, how to use like the little library card things that you would go through and try to find out what book that you needed for your research paper. And then we get these stack of books and we'd have to read through those books to go and find what information we needed and what was the reliable source, and then how to cite properly at the end of the paper.
See, yeah, well, we ain't had to do all that. We didn't have to go to no library class to do that. Now they encourage us, like, hey, you know, if y'all want to do it, like the last time we'd have to use a book is for a book report. Now, when it came to doing like papers and stuff like that, especially for like argumentative like essay, they'd say we'd use our computers, and they say we have to use scholarly articles. So like my school, I went to NKU, they had their own scholarly website, but they'd also say like, all right, you can go on a Google Scholar as well. They said you have to use scholarly articles and stuff like that. It also would say you can't use .gov. I don't know if they said .net, but they told us you can't use .gov and stuff like that. They said you can use stuff that .edu.
And then those papers were handwritten. I think up until 5th grade, we were like handwriting our papers because we had penmanship classes. We had to learn how to write. And then apparently these kids have chicken scratch handwriting. Like they weren't taught penmanship classes.
I still got chicken scratch.
Cursive. They weren't taught.
They say that they say that geniuses write with chicken scratch. I believe that. I'm a genius.
Like it's crazy.
Over 1/3 of my students used AI to write their most recent essay, and I'm not even mad about it. Okay, I was just a little mad. I got over it. Why would this not upset me? Because it opened up a really cool conversation in my class. I posed this question to my students, and the question was, for a generation of students who are so determined to have your own voice, to have your own opinion, to have your arguments heard and valued,
why are you
so quick to let AI take that away from you? After all the gaping stares kind of cleared up, they all started to come to this realization that yes, if they're letting AI write their papers and form their arguments and
they're being hypocrites.
create opinions for them, then where does their opinion stand, and where are they able to share their own voice? I then shared with them that yes, this is just a silly rhetorical analysis essay, and you're not going to be writing rhetorical analysis essays for the rest of your life. However, rhetorical analysis is a life skill. We just practice it in English class. You're constantly looking for arguments from other people, seeing if we agree with them, seeing if we understand. We're looking for biases so that we can form our own educated opinions. If they let AI do that for them now, how are they going to be able to do that in the future? And how does their opinion then become valued and heard? So yeah, I'm not mad about it. And we are switching to a completely different type of writer's workshop where my students are going to be able to work on creating their voice so that they know how in the future to do that.
Hell yeah.
Skills are life skills. We just practice them in English class.
The thing that we were really thrilled about with making Predator Killer of Killers was, what if it wasn't just following one?
At my school, when I was in elementary school to middle school, typing a paper was seen as a privilege. We had to earn that right to learn how to type our papers, and it first started off with us knowing how to write physically these papers. Now these kids don't even have to hold a pen or a pencil because they're given iPads and computers once they hit 1st grade. All of these tools that we want.
And you know it's crazy because she's right. Anytime, and it kills me. It was it's very ironic because she's right. We'd be writing our papers, and then we'd ask her to be so excited. When can we use computers? When can we use computers? When you learn how to write papers, then you can use computers. But they didn't tell you that once you start using computers, there's more to it, and there's more work. I mean, it's the same amount of work. But I wouldn't say more difficult, but it's more advanced, but I'd say it's more work. It's like, all right, with writing your papers, is like, all right, I'm going to the library, and I know what books I need to go get. Cool. Now, with a computer, you have millions on top of millions of articles, books, scholarly journals, websites that you got to sift through to find what you need. It's more complex, hence more work and more like straining. It's also straining for the eyes and also taking away from your penmanship as well. So it's funny because they use that as an incentive. But once you get it, it's like, damn, it's not really an incentive. I'd rather go back to writing. And then you ask, can I just write my shit? That's no, you got to type it. Because then they start going into different writing styles. And you do learn different writing styles on a computer. Like APA writing style, APA writing style. Then there's MLA format. And then there's so many other like writing styles, bro. It's a whole lot that you can only do on the computer. So like you really get into more complicated, well, I wouldn't say complicated, but when you go from just writing reports to like typing them, you get into another territory.
had developed our critical thinking, our patience, our creativity. I feel like through this, we learned what our passions were. Some people learned that they really do love computers. They're techie people. Some people learned they really like books and they want to be a librarian. Or we learned how important libraries were. We learned the significance of it. Some people found out they loved writing essays like myself. I learned through all this that I love writing. Writing was my thing. I think I'm really good at writing, and now I'm a video essayist on YouTube. And
I'm very good at writing. I don't like writing essays. I'm just a conversationalist.